Hello, viewers. Welcome to the interview section of Literary Pleasures. With me today is Hogan. He is the author of the novel Caught in the Pot, and we'll be discussing the novel in this interview session. First, let me give you a profile of the author. Hogan was born in Edmonton, Alberta in 1990. He lived in Australia for some time before he moved to Vancouver to pursue a career in film and acting. He has been involved in various film festivals like the Calgary International Film Festival, Vancouver International Film Festival, Fantasia International Film Festival. I can tell you he has a lot of experience with film festivals and writing. And he has also been the section editor at Beetroot magazine for over 2 years. He told me he started writing this novel Caught in the Pot during the quarantine. That is the lockdown due to the pandemic. So I'd like to ask you, Hogan, how was the lockdown in Canada?
I think it probably depended on where you lived in Canada. Obviously, it's a giant country, so different areas were affected differently. I think Quebec got hit pretty bad. When I wrote it, I was in Vancouver, British Columbia, and things were maybe relatively not so bad, but it felt bad to us. Everything closed up. I'm in Alberta now, and things are kind of starting to open, but actually just today, BC closed again. So their restaurants closed for a few weeks. So they seemed, maybe they were really precautious, but things seemed pretty bad. Luckily, my friends and my family have all been totally fine. So just for me, everything was okay. But yeah, some people were hit hard, whether it was their jobs or their health, for sure.
Yeah, I'm happy everything is okay your end. Now let me give you a summary of the novel Caught in the Pot. Caught in the Pot is about a young man called Cade, who's falls desperately in love with a young woman, Tilly. And just about the time he's thinking of settling down, he develops an addiction to opioids. Kane is a wandering 20-something who tattoos his way from town to town and is looking for a place he can call home. But what is home? That's a philosophical question posed in the novel. Kane arrives in Sachin, a quaint fishing town on the Atlantic Ocean, where he meets and falls for the charming Tilly. When Kane finds work on the high-paying lobster boat, Tilly, his girlfriend and lover, becomes afraid and worried. This is because lobster fishing is a dangerous and demanding work, and it has led to various tragedies of all kinds, including addiction to drugs. Now, there is a quote I got from the novel. I've forgotten the chapter, but the quote got me thinking. Let me read out the quote. This is what it says. Home is where the heart is, and the house is not a home. He had never known a thing about the first sentiment, and only ever knew the latter to be true. So, Hogan, in the novel, what do you define to be a home? Because I think that definition goes to the heart of the novel.
Yeah, that's probably true in a way. The book isn't autobiographical at all. But I guess I do resonate with that idea of just not really knowing, if you will, find that sense of home. I've moved around quite a bit ever since I was a little kid. I think home is just wherever you're with the people that you love, and maybe Kane just never really felt that. So it seems like he's just moving and trying to find it and being open to it. And then when he meets Tilly, I think for the first time, he has some hope that maybe he's found a home rather than just a house that he's waiting to leave.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I noticed that Kane is famous for the tattoos all over his body. And I was beginning to think that the tattoo is symbolic. What does the tattoo symbolize? He seems to be obsessed with it. Was it a desire for self-love or a desire to hurt himself?
I don't think it was really either of those things. I had never really seen tattoo culture portrayed in a movie very well. So that's kind of where I got the idea for a story, because I thought it would be interesting to see that on screen. So I thought of that as I was writing it. I thought that it was just an interesting goal for him to have, because you wanted to root for him to make it. And so really his talents lie in his tattooing. So you want him to flourish at that and maybe make a living. And I just thought that the imagery of him tattooing was interesting. And ultimately, the story is about drug use. So I thought it was an interesting juxtaposition as well, thinking this healthy thing that he loves to do involves putting a needle in his skin. And then the worst thing that he starts doing to himself is putting a needle into his skin. So I like the idea of comparing those two things.
Yeah, so one follows the other.
In this case, yeah, unfortunately it did.
Yeah,
But definitely not all the time, but just in this case for sure, yeah.
Yeah, we know this fiction.
Yeah.
Now, another quotation that got me thinking is that of the portrayal of the lighthouse when Cain and Tilly were on a cliff. Look at the conclusion they came to about a lighthouse. Let me read the quotation. A lighthouse could be a warning to ships or something that makes someone realize his home. And when Cain wanted to tattoo on Tilly, he tattooed a lighthouse on the left breast of Tilly. So, which of these two definitions did a lighthouse imply to these lovebirds?
Yeah, I think he had probably always seen a home or people or maybe someone to love as a danger. And like the book implies, lighthouses imply danger. It means stay away from this lighthouse. There's rocks here, and if you get too close, then you will crash or you will die or whatever the case. But lighthouses are also a thing that you need to look for and a call to home. And so I think Cain's view of what a lighthouse might mean, or just the idea of that, switched. So when he gave himself the lighthouse and gave her the lighthouse, it had changed meanings, and it meant a call to home rather than a sign of danger.
Okay, that's right. Now, the subplot in the novel was about love, the love between Cain and Tilly. I want to ask you, does love always win at the end?
No, I definitely don't think love always wins. I think this, I don't want to give too much away, but I'd like to think of that it's a hopeful story, because there's a lot of people that have problems with different vices, whether it's drugs or alcohol or gambling or whatever the case. In this case, it's drugs. And sometimes their lives don't make it, and sometimes that love doesn't make it. But sometimes it does. And so reading this book, I just wanted people to realize what was at risk of that and believe in the risk and hope for it. And people can, I guess, decide for themselves in the end if love won or not.
So viewers, you've heard yourself. I will encourage you to pick up the book and read to find out if love always wins in the end. There's also something interesting about the novel. When Kirk, a colleague of Cain, told him that everyone needs a cure for their pain, Cain said that Tilly was his cure. Now, that was interesting. How effective was Tilly being Cain's cure?
Well, I would say he believed that for a time, and then love isn't always enough to cure us of the pains in life. And for Cain, he struggled with that. And even when really his cure was drug use, or what he thought was his cure, he kept telling himself that it wasn't his cure until he was still his cure. But I think that he probably lost the thread in that plot. So yeah, I hope in the end that she was still his cure, though. I'd like to think that.
Yeah. I would like to say something to you. I would like to tell you that I respect your craft. I admire the way you wrote the novel, especially the way you wrote the prose. The novel had lots of prose. What I admired much was how you described the scene in the boat, where the men on the boat had to haul the ropes, and how dangerous the ropes were, and how tasking the job on the boat was, that Cain was sweating profusely on his first day at the job. At some scenes, I was even scared myself. So how did you do it? How many years have you been practicing for this?
Well, thanks for the kind words, first of all. That's very nice. As far as like practicing writing, I've been writing for work for quite a few years, and I really just read a lot as a kid. I read um, some books that were probably beyond my age when I was really little, and I just kept doing it, and I always enjoyed it. I think I've just always loved stories. That's why I got into. I mean, I love movies now. I just like the stories. I I'm a pretty empathetic person. I think I owe that pretty much entirely to the stories that I consumed as a person. As for like this specific book, I had actually written about half a screenplay, about 50 pages for it for Caught in the Pot, and then just kind of scrapped it because I didn't really know what to do with it, and kind of just lost interest and motivation. And then quarantine hit, and I just had a ton of free time on my hands. And I decided I'd never written or published a book or a short story or anything like that. And I decided to write a page of a scene in my head just to see what it looked like. Because I mean, you don't even really know what kind of writer you are until you write something that sounds obvious, but you might think you can do something and then you try it and you don't like what's there, or you love it. And I liked what I read and what I had written. So I just started writing it and I ended up finishing it. And then, yeah, so it took me about 2-3 hours a day for about, I'd say 4 or 5 months to finish it. And then a couple of months of editing and then rereading and a couple more months of editing and waiting. And yeah, so it took me about 10 months.
So I would say more grease to your elbow. Do you hope to write more novels after this?
I hope so, but you never know. The world's getting back to normal a little bit. I have less free time. I mean, if people enjoy the novel and maybe if I sell enough copies, it financially makes sense for me to do so. I have I have a few ideas rolling around in my head that I'd like to pursue, and I liked this experience. So yeah, I hope so.
Thank you. So what was the message of Caught in the Pot? What was the message you were trying to put across?
Um, I don't know if there was a specific message I was going for, and if I did have a message, I don't know if I'd want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it, but I do know that there's obviously a lot of books and a lot of movies about drug use, but I've found that typically the people affected by it, who they come from really bad homes or their lives are really, really horrific to begin with, starting from childhood most of the time. Obviously, that's not the case for everything. There are a few exceptions, but I really found that there was a lack of portrayal of drug use as just your normal person who gets sucked into that world, whether it's through bad genetics or like Caught in the Pot, their work. Because I did read a story about uh, lobster, the lobster fishing industry in Maine, and they had like one of the highest rates of overdose in the country just because their work demanded it. So it doesn't have to be lobster fishing. I'm sure you could pick a lot of different industries and a lot of different corporations. And there's just, you kind of have to do drugs to do the job. And so I just wanted to portray watching a seemingly normal person to no fault of his own get sucked into that world and maybe create some empathy for that kind of situation.
Okay. Now let's talk a little about your reading. Many authors are known to read books in order to gain some experience. If you were deserted on an island, what book would you like to take with you?
Um, you know, I would probably take Moby Dick just because it's really long and I have never read it. So at least I would get one new experience on the island rather than reading a book I've already read. And it would probably take me like 50 times to read it just to actually understand it. So that might not be a bad way to go.
Okay, I've not read Moby Dick myself, but I've heard about it. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe I'll pick it up myself and I'll review it on this channel. So
Yeah. If you like it, I'll check it out. I'll bring it to the island with me.
okay, so viewers, you've heard about the book Caught in the Pot. I will encourage you to pick it up from the Amazon.ca website. Buy it or leave a review. And when I was speaking with Hogan Schultz, he said he's willing to give a free copy to anyone who would want to leave a review on Amazon.ca site. So if you want to review the book, you can email me, then I'll send you a copy so you read it and review it. And I encourage you to subscribe to this channel because there'll be more interviews coming in a short while. So Hogan Schultz, do you have any last words for our viewers, readers, and budding authors?
Um, I hope the book sounds interesting to you, and I hope you grab a copy, and I hope you review it on Amazon and Goodreads if you do grab a copy, whether you love it or hate it. I actually haven't really talked to anyone yet who didn't like it, and I think that would be an interesting conversation to have. And yeah, for budding authors, just if it seems like an insurmountable task, it's not. You can do it pretty fast. Just write one page, and if you like it, you should keep going. And if you don't really like it, maybe you should sit on it a little while longer.
Okay. Thank you very much. So you've had yourself. So on behalf of my viewers, I'd like to say thank you to Hogan Schultz, and I hope that we'll get to read more of your books.
Thanks for saying that. Thanks for having me too. It was fun.